Salutations, hiker trash. In order to be successful on a thru hike, there are three main things you need. In the last video I discussed, it was good mental space. In this video, we are going to be talking about the gear you bring backpacking. While every piece of individual gear warrants its own video, I want to spend time in this one generally reviewing what to expect with backpacking gear and some things to look out for. First of all, and this advice will save you much peril, do not listen to people who have never done a major thru hike about what gear you should buy. Generally speaking, you should never listen to them about anything related to a thru hike because of their incessant fear-mongering and ignorance. But it's especially true of backpacking gear. Now, they might be giving you good pointers on gear to buy for anything other than a thru hike, but if you want to do a proper thru hike, you should ask what gear people who have done a proper thru hike use. For example, the instinct of a lot of people is to buy boots or solar panels. Well-meaning friends will tell you those things are best for a sustained hiking adventure. And of the hundreds of people I saw on the Pacific Crest Trail, though, I can count on one hand the number of people who had either. And by the time I made it to the end of the trail, I didn't need hands to count how many people. 0. So you can listen to what people have to say, but ultimately you want to get your advice from the success stories of other people. And another common error aspirant thru hikers make is thinking they need to have tons of things so they can be prepared for everything. That instinct needs to die in you if you want to succeed on a major thru hike. The consequence of ignoring this is that the people who go on these hikes pack redundant things, or excessive changes of clothes and so forth. And your instinct might be that packing these things is good because you're prepared. But packing all of those things shows that you are actually not prepared, as ironic as that might sound. Why? Because if you are prepared, you will know what you absolutely need for the hike, and nothing more or less. And that knowledge comes from extensive research and test runs in the field. When you get rained on, you can choose between layers most appropriate for you and reflect on what works best and doesn't, so when your hike comes, you don't have to carry around 2 rain jackets or a poncho when none of that's going to do you any favors. On my Australian trek, I made this mistake when I didn't know what to buy for rain gear, so I ended up with a poncho and a jacket, which had one of the two being dead weight, while I used the other. And the same rule applies to changes of socks. How many socks do you really need to hike? My answer to that question is 2 pairs. 2 pairs of socks was all I've ever needed through hiking. When one wears out, I can exchange it for a new pair and move on. Same with changes of clothes. I only ever have 1 pair I wear everywhere. And when I do laundry, I slip into my rain gear while I wait. Yeah, I do have some warm layers, but generally speaking, I only have the 1 pair of clothes. Well, what about first aid? My first aid kit is leukotape, ibuprofen, and a Swiss Army knife. If I were to ever find myself needing more than that, then I either shouldn't be hiking to begin with, or if I am hiking, I should probably be evacuated. No point in carrying a pharmacy on my back. I'm not planning on getting injured. I'm planning to prevent injury. So, somebody might be thinking that my approach is callous and foolhardy. Well, here's why they're wrong. First of all, my packing list speaks for itself, having sustained me over 3,000 miles of backcountry hiking. And second of all, every additional ounce of weight you carry is an ounce of weight that will unnecessarily bear down on your body, which can potentially cause injuries and, worse yet, make you hate the experience of backpacking. And that brings me to a new major point to make with gear. You have to keep your base weight low. Your base weight is what you're carrying on your back minus food and water. If you are carrying more than 15 pounds of it, you are going to make your hike more difficult and less enjoyable than it ought to be. The reality is, over 6 months, your body is going to start falling apart in some way or another. There's no point in exacerbating that with extra weight. My first hike, I experienced great shoulder pain as I approached the end, and I only ever had 12 pounds of gear or less on my back. But that constantly present weight will compound into injuries. With even a couple pounds more, who knows how much more quickly I could have gotten myself into trouble. So you obviously want to buy functional equipment, but you must factor weight into that functionality, and in no small part either. Because you are going to be optimizing functionality and lightlessness, I guess that's a word, you're probably going to find that your gear is going to look, well, ridiculous. And ridiculous gear is actually a sign you are doing something right. Because they were sold out of every other color, my food bag ended up being hot pink. But I didn't care because it was lightweight, rodent resistant, and of the size I needed it to be. My hat was this ugly, back flappy, bonnet looking thing, but it kept the sun off of my very burnable skin. If I needed to take a picture, I would just take the hat off. When you think about what you are doing, the magnitude of the journey you're undertaking, you realize very quickly that your appearance doesn't matter as much as you think it does. When you complete a thru hike, nobody will ask you if you looked handsome doing it. More likely, by the end of it, you'll look like a bum. Instead, people will say how cool that is, that you hiked this amazing trail, and you did it with the means available to you. More importantly, you'll have the self-satisfaction of having seen it through. One final consideration to make when buying gear, and this is going to sound dumb, but to make sure you actually know how to use it by the time you get out on the trail. I met lots of people on day one of a major trail who had no idea how to set up their tent. Embarrassing. Now, if I can embarrass myself for a moment, I didn't learn that my emergency satellite beacon had Bluetooth functionality until the third to last day of my first major thru hike. That's on day 137 of my hike. I didn't know about a major feature of a piece of gear I spent over $400 on. I'm not saying you should overdo it with the preparation and training for your gear, but I'm saying you should get really familiar with how to use your gear before you hit the trail and be made aware of all of its functionality. And that's just one less thing to worry about for when you get out there. So there you go. Some considerations about the gear you should buy when you hike the trail you've always wanted to. And I hope that you do. Thank you for listening.